All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you are in. What are we going to be talking about, Russ, today?
David, this show may be the most important one we have done so far. The establishment of bases and mining operations on the moon and on Mars have the potential to give us clean energy for the next 10,000 years.
Oh my gosh. So we're looking at a major competition now between US, China, and Russia.
We are.
Well, great. Well, before we get into that, we're going to be just addressing some housekeeping stuff, guys. I know also we wanted to let you know what are we planning on, because we always like to keep our viewers informed as to what we're doing. So here's the thing. We are working on a conference or summit, shall we say, in the next few months. So we're going to post information about it. We are still discussing the format, whether we're going to have panelists come in or we're gonna figure that out, and we'll let you know. It's going to be about a China summit where we're going to have some really serious conversations regarding that. Second thing, we are in the process of launching now our courses. And soon our website is going to be available. We're looking only about probably 3 or 4 weeks. Is that correct, Elizabeth? So our producer, Elizabeth, by the way, she's the one who's managing all this. We cannot thank her enough for this support and, of course, assistance, because without her, we won't be sitting here. So straightforward, I don't sugarcoat things, And also the other thing is, we want to thank you for all the names you guys provided us for our guest. What do you make of our guest last week, Brian Burlick?
That man was really amazing, and the number of comments we got about him were just wonderful. Bright, articulate, knowledgeable, and we really enjoyed talking to him.
Indeed, and there were a lot of our viewers asking that we bring him back, and we will. We're going to bring him back. Just to, guys, let you know, all the other names you guys provided or suggested to us, we did reach out to them. So just to let you know, and we're still waiting for an answer. So make sure you can reach out to them yourself if you have ways, and let them know that, we truly would love to have them on our show. So we are working on schedule as we speak. And we might have somebody next week. I usually don't like to spit out for you. We want to keep it as a surprise. So that's what we're gonna do. So we want also to thank our Patreon members for the support, and for you, please make sure to subscribe if you have not done already. So you guys can notice that the numbers are going up because of you. So we want to thank you for that. So let me see one more thing here. And by the way, guys, if you do have Twitter, make sure to follow us on Twitter, because we do post our stuff there as well. So we thank you for everything. Let's get on with this, because we got a lot to cover. And we'll start with our topics of the week. See what's going on around the world.
These topics, there's so many of them, and they're always a surprise. It keeps us really interested in what's going on. Fighting between the Taliban and Northern Alliance. So there's not peace in Afghanistan.
What do you expect? What do you expect in Afghanistan? It's a society that has wars and conflict. It's part of that society. I hope they will ever end this, but it doesn't look like it. What happened is that the Taliban went over to Panjshir. Panjshir area is where the Northern Alliance used to be. Actually, the guy who's leading the force in Panjshir is none other than the son of the Shah Massoud, who was assassinated by the Taliban way back. So there are now there are some fights over there, and this just gives an idea of it's not easy to reach peace in Afghanistan. So.
Well, how many? Let's not go there too deep, because that's not our topic today. Some countries are not recognizing the Taliban as a legitimate government.
Actually, the European Union is saying, no, we don't think so. The US, even Washington now, is hesitating to recognize the Taliban as a legitimate government yet. So, because within a few weeks, if not sooner than that, the Taliban is going to announce its government and structure and cabinet and so forth. So it's very interesting. Russia, China, and Iran. Iran recognized the Taliban, not as a government yet, but as the representatives so far. I won't be surprised that they might move forward with recognizing them as a legitimate government once the Taliban sits in formally on the table in the government, shall we say.
And we've certainly seen the Chinese be very supportive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Listen to this one, David.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Europe is considering exiting the American military umbrella.
That means NATO is over?
Well,
it's about time. Actually, what triggers this, and funny enough, Ross, that just yesterday morning, I read the transcript of the representative of the EU in Brussels, mentioning or suggesting that it is time for Europe to start considering putting its defense force stand alone from the United States. So maybe, it is time. And also, this is, to me, the way I interpret it also as an indication for is the US on its last leg of its hegemony around the world?
That's another topic for us to explore another day.
I know.
You're going to have to help me with the pronunciation of this, because we have the death of a very important person in Kashmir.
Oh, that's
Saeed Ali Gilani.
Gilani. Yeah, Ali Gilani. He's an elder. He's about 92, I believe. He was one of the opposition to Indian government regarding Kashmir. So, and he lived all his life in Kashmir and advocated for that, and he died. He just passed away. But what's surprising about this is that India issued a curfew and blocked or cut off internet connections into that area and prevented anybody from attending or going to where his funeral is. So that's a practice that India or New Delhi should have think about twice, because when you talk about Jammu, Kashmir, Jammu means occupied Kashmir, that becomes a very, very problematic for the Indian government to behave that way. So his death is a big blow to the cause, I guess. And we're going to be doing a show about Kashmir soon. So we're gathering the information about it, and we're going to do that.
Most people don't understand the importance of what's going on in Kashmir, but that's another topic.
That's another topic
day.
Because it's too complicated. It's too complicated.
Well, what do you say we get on to the new space race?
Space. All right.
What we know is that in 1957, the former Soviet Union put Sputnik up, the first artificial satellite. And in 1969, with Apollo 11, the United States put the first Neil Armstrong man on the moon. By the way, my cousin was a flight director for that.
Wow, that's interesting. I bet you had some interesting conversations with him.
Lots of interesting conversations and real behind-the-scenes tours. What really happened?
Did he say something about? Are there any other beings in that part of the space? Or? If he could disclose that information.
Well, he was retired by then, and he disclosed a lot. There's a big story to be told one day. It's probably going to be soon.
Wow, interesting.
So what we have is the beginnings of a new space race. China, Russia, Israel, India, the United States.
Well, usually when those countries, the small countries, is not going to be a big part of it. Basically, the race is going to be limited to China, Russia, and the US. That's about it. You're not going to think about the European Union, the space agency is going to play a big role into this. Israel or India or any other countries, none of them is going to, because where you see the race has to do also be with what those countries, the three main ones, wants to do in space. Well, this whole idea, and why we decided to do this today, is because it's going to be triggering something about international law, whether it applies to space or not.
Oh, and is this murky waters?
Exactly. And this is where that challenge has become now regarding as to what China wants to do is to mine the moon. But will that be a violation of international law? Well, is it different than what the United States wants to do? Because the NASA is planning on putting some structure, shall we say, in the moon by 2030. Well, interesting enough is that the same thing for Russia and China. They are cooperating to have the establishment of those research facilities in the moon, on the moon surface. by 2030. But the issue is not about just that one. The issue is about, okay, are we going to be talking about borders in space?
And what we know is nothing firm has been established.
No.
I mean, there were some attempts by the UN to do it, but it's still left so much unsaid, so much unagreed to. And are the countries involved living up to their agreements anyway?
Yeah, you're referring to the 1967 treaty.
Yes.
I got a long name, if I may share it here. It's called the Treaty on Principles Governing the Activities of States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the moon and other celestial bodies.
Kind of a long name.
They could shorten that to one word, the Outer Space Treaty.
Yeah.
And that's it. So what's interesting about that is that you got, as of February 2021, there are 111 countries that have sort of agreed or been party to the treaty. Another 23 countries have signed the treaty, but have not completed the ratification of that treaty. So basically, what are we looking at? We're looking at, yes, we might have some law or regulations or whatever you want to call it that can govern activities in space, but we're still going to do what we want to do. Because the question becomes, okay, who are you to decide this is your border, this is my border in space?
And will the United States say, we're going to contain activities on the moon?
Yeah.
Because China's involved. Well, all of a sudden, this doesn't make much sense.
No, it does not. No. There are those who argue, Ross, that, well, whoever country got there first and stick their flag there, then that belongs to them. Maybe, maybe not. You know, what I found very interesting here, all of a sudden, there is this interest because China is moving into that direction. So we didn't hear about this 10 years ago. No, we didn't hear about it. Even though 10 years ago, there start to be some conversation regarding some rare elements in space that can be explored. And China was one of those countries thinking about it back in 2013, believe it or not. So to China, what they are thinking of doing about the moon exploration, so forth, it's not new. What's new now is all of a sudden, we are talking about international law. We're talking about boundaries and all that stuff. You know, why didn't you talk about this 10 years ago?
You know, China has to be taken seriously with the new space station.
Exactly.
Which I think shocked half the world.
Well, because the speed by which
we
reached that, Ross. No. Yeah.
And then we have them on the Mars at the same time that the United States is on Mars.
Yeah.
So China is not just a player. They are a significant player. And they seem to be so fast at this.
I know.
That they say, well, 2030. Well, maybe, and it could be sooner at this speed with which they accomplish things.
Yeah. But here's the fascinating thing. This one has to do with the idea of what's there to explore. Well, one of the things that there's a lot of conversation that start to emerge has to do with Helium 3.
You know, Helium 3 is something hardly anyone's heard of outside the scientific community.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at is a fuel for fusion power generation. Right now it's fission with a lot of radioactive waste and so on. But with Helium 3, there's no radioactive waste.
Interesting.
It's a much cleaner source, very powerful, and there are about 120 million metric tons of that on shallow surface of the moon.
Exactly. Actually, some estimates that I came across was between 1 and 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the idea of, when you think about it, at least for our viewer, just for you two guys know the idea of what is helium and what is made of. Well, the regular helium is about 2 protons, 2 neutrons, and 2 electrons. You know, Helium 3 is nothing but about 2 protons and 1 neutron, which makes it very light, first of all. And second, its abundance on the moon surface is far greater than one on Earth.
It's 100 million times more prevalent on the moon than it is on the Earth. That's very significant.
Exactly. But the advantage of all this is, can you imagine the benefits of its usage in the for example, the medical field.
Oh.
You know, I mean, you're going to be fueling things for next 10,000 years. So I can see that whoever has its hand on that massive wealth over in space, you can see where this is going.
Right.
And why not? Countries can compete for something, because it could be, after all, will benefit all of us as a human, you know. But the question is, the way I ask myself is, you know, how come all of a sudden we are talking about the moon when we went back in the 60s and never went back? Did we found something we didn't like? Was there something there that the government didn't want to tell us?
We have indications that there might be some truth to that.
Well, actually it is, because here is the thing. How come we only see one side of the moon? We don't see the other. China landed on the other side of the moon, by the way. So, and it becomes question, which is question to you all as well. Are we alone? It's reality.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're going to have to start to think about, I mean, literally, guys, take a step back and just think. Out of all the history of the universe, 14.7 billion years, and you're telling me we are the only beings that exist in this universe? I mean, come on. Literally. And the question that we never went back to the moon, so how come we in the United States are about to spend $500 billion to go to Mars, about 42 million miles, when the moon is only about 238,000 miles?
Right.
You know, what's interesting about is what I found very interesting, Ross, which I'm sure our viewers will be asking the same question. Have you ever wondered, when you go outside on a full moon and look at the moon and see how perfect that structure is?
You take a look at other moons and other objects in space, they've got a lot of very odd shapes.
Oh, they are
They're not
deformed.
perfectly round.
Yeah, they are deformed. Look at just the moons around Mars.
Oh, yeah.
It's so deformed, you know, and yet ours, it's so perfect. I mean, if you are in the countryside, you can read newspaper at night if it is full moon. But the question is, we never went back. Is there something there that the government is not telling us about?
Another program, another show, a deep dive into that, maybe.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, you're talking about other worldly beings that, you know, I am convinced, and this is my personal opinion, we are not alone. We can be.
There's an awful lot of evidence pointing that direction, but that's not the point of our show today.
No, it's not.
I think one of the things to really consider here is, like this Helium 3, 25 tons of that would power the entire United States for a year.
Oh my God.
And we're talking about millions of metric tons available.
Wow.
And we've already got the technology available to transport it.
Yeah.
Of course, it's really expensive. It's like $3 billion a ton, but still, that's pennies on the dollar when you compare it with other sources of energy.
That is correct. Well, before we overdo that, we need to clean up the mess we left in the moon as far as the debris. You know, do you know we have over 400,000 tons of debris?
Really?
Yeah, in space. You know, that's it's almost, I feel like, you know, whoever is in the moon saying, hey, clean up your stuff and get out. That's basically what it will be like.
So how are they going to, you know, we have to raise the question, how are the powers in the United States going to come to some understandings about how they're going to deal with the moon, territory, Mars, resources, when they can't do it now, here on Earth?
And that is that's logical question, Ross, and it is an interesting one, because there are those lawyers in space. You know, there are lawyers that deal with space dimensions and so forth, which is interesting enough that there's a lawyer that deals with space. So, but it becomes the question is, who will have the authority to decide? You know, if we are to say, you know, the moon or any body in space belongs to everybody. So, well, who are you, country A, country B, country C, to start dictating that, no, you can only use this space? What if I landed there first? All of a sudden you come in and you want to take the same spot. That means you're going to have to use force. Using force, we all know what it means.
That means war.
War. So you start having war in space.
And you know, you say, well, the moon is big. And there should be lots of spaces for people to land and take, but that's not true.
That's
There
not
are
true.
only a few sweet spots that have the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of shade, the right amount of protection, and the right amount of water.
Exactly. But here's the thing. A lot of the middle of the moon, the center of the moon is hollow.
Oh,
Yeah, which a lot of people do not know. They think that, the center of the moon is hollow. Did you ever wonder why the moon, why we couldn't ever see the dark side of the moon? Because it doesn't
rotate.
No, it does not. That makes you just wonder, is it a structure? Is it a moon? What is it? As a matter of fact, when back in the 60s, when we launched, I think, the module, there was some vibration coming out of the moon for about 3 days. It's almost like a banging of sort. It's almost like when you hit a metal.
Yeah.
What do you hear? You hear that sound.
Yeah.
That was exactly what it was in the moon for 3 days.
There's a lot that's been hidden from us.
Well, a lot. Think about this. It just happened last month, actually July 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. It was an FBI raid on an observatory in New Mexico. They shut it down. And why? Because that observatory, its sole purpose is to sort of keep an eye on the sun.
Yeah.
So, and they shut it down. All of a sudden, the government saying that no, some rogue employee got onto the internet and so forth, which is, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
You don't shut down an observatory just like this because of an employee's error getting into the internet. My theory to that, Ross, and I'm a no astrophysicist. I like astrophysics. I like to read up on it and all that, but I'm not qualified for that. But my theory for this common sense to me says that they probably saw something, because they saw something regarding the sun flares. When the sun flares comes out,
oh yeah,
that can be devastating. They can shut down grids altogether. I don't know. They didn't want people to know. They didn't want something, because here's the thing. When for example, how the military pilots, when we conduct an operation,
right,
which direction do we go? We go the direction where the sun is here, because you won't be able to see the reflection of that. It's no different. And I think as to why the FBI will go shut it down, that tells me right there, there's something that they didn't want the public to know. I mean, could it be out of fear? Could it be? I don't know. It's just unusual. Just unusual. So this is just to highlight the big question. Just to go back to our topic is, this Helium III, which didn't come to everybody's knowledge till about 1939. It was by an Australian physicist. He was an Australian physicist who started to talk about this one here, and the importance of it. I mean, can you imagine getting your energy from that, a clean energy that is?
And if there's really 5 million tons, that's 50,000 years of more or less cheap energy. You talk about geopolitically disrupting the entire economy of the world.
Oh, that's for sure.
And perhaps even saving the environment.
That's for sure.
Wow.
It will be a big change to that. And this is, again, the question that we are asking is are we going to be seeing now geopolitical tensions not only on Earth, but in space as well? And if it is in space, could this take another dimension altogether?
And the prediction is probably.
Probably.
Because the conflict going on right now it looks like it's unstoppable.
It is indeed. Well, when you think about China, for example, China is a newcomer to the space race. However, by China coordinating with Russia has a lot of experience into this. After all, they were the first to land Yuri Gagarin in 1957 on the moon surface. So for them cooperating together makes perfect sense. Now the question becomes, is this going to now launch a new space race? Some here in the US downplaying that. Others are saying this is probably where it's going. It's a space race. Because why are we, for example, establishing Space Force?
Right.
What for? If we are talking about, no, we don't want any militarization of space, then what are you doing there? And my question is, because China's gonna have an edge over the US.
Well, we know they're cooperating with the Russians, who have the most powerful booster rockets on the planet.
That's correct.
And they're even developing newer, more powerful ones.
Yeah, and to China, the advantage they're going to have, you know what? Is they can retrofit the 5G network.
Oh, yeah.
And if you retrofit the 5G network, you can blind all the satellites. And if you blind the satellites, that's it. You can be able to maneuver with any equipments you have on Earth, because they can either retrofit that one, blind the satellites, or you can laser them. Two options. So, and this is where the danger, when we're saying this to highlight the concern of this is going to lead to. So in other words, you start seeing things being shot down from up down through a laser.
You're right.
So what are we going to be? It's very, very concerning, very dangerous. And I hope, and this is again where we hope, at least for the United States, to sit down and have a direct conversation with the Chinese, with the Russians, rather than these sanctions here, sanctions there, all that intimidation and all that it's nonsense. It's because for all our sake. This is not about one country or the pride of a country or the ego of a country.
We know that the Russians and the Chinese are tough negotiators, but they negotiate.
They negotiate.
They sit down and talk. They don't have a conference where they're screaming out all the atrocities that the Americans are doing to themselves.
Yeah.
The way the Alaska fiasco went.
Yeah. Or you start to think in terms of, okay, what are we allocating? At least for us, we can't speak for the Chinese, we can't speak for the Russians, but at least for us in the US, what are we allocating our funding for, let's say, a trip to Mars? As I said earlier, $500 billion to go to Mars.
Yeah.
That's 42 million miles. When we can, if you want to go to the moon, then get to the moon.
And by the way, we've already been there.
Never went back.
And never went back.
But the question is why?
Yet to be answered.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people do not know. It's kind of, why haven't we went back to the moon, which is closer to us here? Interesting enough is that way back, over time, the moon was moving away from Earth by about an inch in every rotation.
Yeah.
Till it gets to where it is today, 238,000 miles. Is that a coincidence? No, it's not. The reason being because all the orbiting satellites are only about 22,000 above the Earth. They can't go beyond that.
Oh,
and the moon is right above it slightly. So it makes you just wonder.
Interesting coincidence.
We'll use the term coincidence, but it makes you wonder, is the moon a structure that's been placed there or put there, or is it something else? Are we alone? Because any intelligent individuals will see what's going on here and say, there is no way we are the only intelligent people. I mean, you think about the technology that those civilizations are using. It makes us look like a child play, what we have here. You know, you can call on our best astrophysicists on Earth, and it will be like their third grader over there. That's how advanced they are, because the technology they are using, you know, from teleportation to anti-gravity proportions to, you know, those are some advanced technologies that.
And we have some evidence that actually has visited, the anti-gravity propulsion systems have visited the Earth.
Exactly. So it will be very, very interesting just to see how this, and this is why we wanted to talk today about this Helium 3, just to highlight, you know, this is not a scientific conversation, because we're not a scientist in terms of astrophysics, whatever. And it's, you know, I just like it as a hobby, no more, no less. But I have no claim, just to put this on the record, I have no claim to suggesting that I do know 100% what everything is. No, you know, just moving into that direction.
The Helium 3 gives us a perspective on what can be and how easy it could be if there was actually international cooperation here.
Yeah, which would benefit all of us.
Absolutely. Everyone on the planet could benefit from it.
Yeah, it'll benefit all of us. I mean, can you imagine we have access to this Helium 3 and all of a sudden you create this energy? I mean, what we can do with it in all sectors. This is not about just, you know, fueling planes or having electricity in houses, whatever, or factories. but also in medical field. What can you do with the type of operations we do, medical procedures and so forth? We're all going to benefit.
And a major source of conflict evaporates.
It will be, yes.
There's no longer a scramble for petroleum.
No, this, because that will render that kind of
It's
irrelevant.
It's a moot point. It's irrelevant once we have this much cheaper form of energy available.
Exactly. So, well, let's go to our question session. And by the way, guys, as we always do, if you will be kind and just put question at the beginning, and so this way we know it's question, and Russ is gonna.
If I can, I'm going to read the question.
Yeah, we'll figure. Elizabeth will help us out.
Okay. Oh, Truth Seeker.
Oh my God.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was a sticker. Thank you so much, Truth. We truly appreciate it. All right, we're gonna look at the next question here.
Do you know who that
That's
is?
Biryukov.
Oh, Biryukov.
Oh, that's our buddy Biryukov. Thank you very much, Biryukov.
Question. 2 days ago, Fox News Tucker Carlson praised China's policies. As a China's hawk, this is so unexpected. What's happening? Something is happening behind the scenes at the conservative camp.
Well, they are seeing the truth. I mean, we know about Tucker Carlson, and I mean, I know he's a hawkish when it comes down to. At least you give him the respect. You know why? He's speaking the truth. I mean, when they end up spying on him, why? Just because he's speaking the truth. It's like what Brian told us. Remember when they shut him down out of Twitter? And, kind of, come on. Just because somebody speaks the truth, he or she becomes the enemy. So, yes, he was very interesting. And I did listen to that one, Biryukov. It was very, very interesting. And he is somebody, I believe, will say it the way it is. But also, it's reality. He's seeing where things are headed. He's a Washington insider. So, and he's seeing where things are moving forward with China. And whether we like it or not, as we always say, the US and the West is having a hard time accepting this reality that the global landscape has shifted, but not to the US favor.
Right. So. One comment about Tucker Carlson, he actually has the reputation among all the popular news media of being a genuine reporter. Mm-hmm. And this is evidence that he takes in information and gives you what he thinks.
Yeah. Maybe we need to invite him for on our show.
Oh,
why not?
I would like that.
I'll reach out to him. I'll shoot him an email and we'll see.
Okay.
You never know. So let's say the next question.
It's coming up.
That was another Ariel, our buddy Ariel. Thank you for being here, Ariel.
What do you think would be the immediate use of the moon's natural resources? Brought to Earth, extrasolar space exploration, space infrastructure, space tourism. I think the natural resources would be the best one with the Helium III.
Except it will be no benefit from it right away.
Oh,
that
right.
will not be
That's
easy
right.
to process, Ariel, because it will take a lot. So we're not looking at an immediate benefit from it. We're not going to see that overnight. It's going to take time. However, that benefit will be worth pursuing, in my opinion. So rather than going and, as I said earlier, spending $500 billion to go to Mars, you can use that one and benefit the Earth first. Then we can think about also, like what you just suggested, the space tourism, because it will be far cheaper to reach. I mean, I remember back in the 80s when Tito was a businessman in California, purchased the seat for $20 million.
Oh, yeah.
And he purchased the seat with the Soyuz, the Russian, not with the NASA. It was with the Russians, and he was trained and he went up there. Well, he could afford it. But an average, like all of us here, we don't have $20 million just laying around. And I won't pay that kind of money. I won't, because that, to me, it's a waste. It doesn't make any sense. So the space tourism will be great to start having that. maybe we don't need to go too far, maybe just in the outer space, just to get a feel for what it's like not to be in with no gravity, and see what it is. And that's it. Those will be those kind of benefits. And the one thing I can tell you based on what I know, and to all of you guys, it's there are a lot of resources in space, far beyond what you can imagine. As a matter of fact, even the moon, the amount of diamond that exists in it. So we all can, if we find a way how to cooperate, we all can benefit. Otherwise, this could trigger some issues. Next question. Oh, that's Venom. That's one of our regular here. Good. Thank you for being here, Venom.
What role does Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos play in space? They are not part of the U.S. government. It's interesting following those two.
Yeah, well, those because of, remember, their commercial aspirations for that. I mean, to them, that's a lot of more money and all that. Yeah, in the case of Elon Musk, you know, he's always talking about the idea of Mars and all that. But, you know, I don't know much. I don't know much about their thinking to why they are. It's almost, I feel like, and again, this is my personal opinion, they're just competing against each other. You add the Sir Bransons to them, and all of a sudden you start to see, well, who's the first billionaire is going to go out of space? Which is, to me, it's ridiculous. I don't know. I can't judge. I'm in no place to judge them, but I do not know what their thinking is. Yet, at least here in the United States, NASA still counts a lot on Elon Musk's rockets.
Yeah, which is very
that's
interesting.
What they're going to do.
There seems to be some real complementary work going on between the two of them.
Exactly. So it's hard to tell as to what they are thinking moving forward, because their objective might be different from what you and I will expect.
You know, one of the things that people experience when they do have a space, when they do actually leave the Earth, is they claim to have a spiritual awakening.
Well, also it's because that makes you aware of how small, tiny we are.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, literally, when you look at this vast universe and Earth, this tiny dot over there, and we think we are this highly mighty when we're not. And that begs the question also, we can be the only entity or beings, whatever you want to call it, on this universe. You know, you extend for about 14.7 billion years. That just common sense suggests otherwise, you know. And there are other technologies out there. They are far advanced that to them, you know, probably they're looking at us as primitive.
Well, we look at ourselves as primitive. Okay, next question.
Oh, gals, good to see you, gals.
Given the vast resources of the solar system, renewable rockets, a magnetic launch, a vastly reduced cost per kilogram of LEO, China's comparative advantage geographically, why not cooperate? The right question. Why not cooperate?
You hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. But there are those behind the scenes in the possession of power. They will try to undermine Daras. They won't want it.
And they're very good at it.
I know, but they don't realize the impacts they're having on humanity as a whole. I don't know how they can live with themselves.
I don't either.
I really don't know
I've
how.
asked myself that several hundred times.
Yeah, how can you go to sleep when you know you've done humanity wrong? How can you face yourself with that?
So I have a PhD in psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and I have diagnosed them as sociopaths. They don't care about other human beings. Other human beings are not alive the way they're alive. Other people are not as important as I am important. There you got it.
Yeah, it's the self-grandiose, I am the best, I am this, I am that.
I'm the only.
Yeah, that's the ego part of some of us, not all. We shall not generalize, of course. But yeah, that's the perfect, you got it right there. And if only policymakers can have, I'm sure they do have that understanding. It just, they will not act upon it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Okay, next question.
HS, good to see you, HS.
Once in outback Australia, in a vineyard owned by a Westerner, I read a sign written, Thanks God to give us this land. It's a self-proclaim. To whom God give the moon this time? Well, it's kind of the right question. And we're going to see I think we're going to see real competition with who gets the sweet spots.
Yeah. Well, of course, because there are only certain locations
that have water, for example.
We must share this with our viewers. There are only certain locations on the moon. As a matter of fact, NASA has already put about 12 locations on them. 12 positions. They've been actually from when Neil Armstrong was there.
Oh.
And he was told not to go back there. And he never disclosed that.
So there's 12 places to stay away from?
To stay away from.
Okay.
Yeah. So why? I don't know. But it can tell you exactly where things are headed. So yeah, to go back to this last question is, well, that depends again, however you perceive God to be, whatever. But it's Earth for all of us to use, not for just one entity here. So.
And goodness knows, if there's as many as 500 million tons of that stuff, there's plenty for everybody. Yeah. There's no scarcity of power and energy.
Exactly. Look who's here, Ross.
Hey, it's Boone.
Hey, Boone, how are you? Good to see you.
Conflicts are normally there when there are insufficient resources to go around. Right. If there's so much Helium III to go around, what would that do to geopolitics? Would we all get along? Oh, Boone, you hit it. Oh, you
hit the nail on the head.
You sure got that one right.
You got it, Boone. And exactly, you won't see these issues about the geopolitical ones on Earth here about resources, because I read one estimate from within the U.S. government that within the next 50 years, there will be a war over water.
Yeah.
Over water. I mean, even here in the U.S. for us, we did have some issues with I think either New Mexico regarding some waters between the state of Texas and New Mexico regarding water. I mean, that's within the same country.
Yeah.
So yes, you're absolutely correct. And abundance of any resource like that in space that can benefit all of us, it will really reduce tensions among countries. But some of the countries, including ours, is not willing to sit down and accept that reality and cooperate. For why? That's beyond our abilities to know why, because the dynamics inside the governments, those are for some other reasons. That's exactly like what happened back at the beginning of the nuclear tests in the U.S. back in the 40s and so forth. Well, that was where former President Harry Truman decided, okay, we're going to have to create a group, if you will, that's going to manage those flying saucers and all that stuff, which was called at the time the MJ-12. That's what they used to be. And that's what led to the Blue Book project, the classified one, and so forth. So, yeah, there's always some hidden competition or agenda within the government that some elements will push for.
Boone, as another thought to your question, I can certainly imagine a golden age for humanity that's been unheard of in the past, with sufficient energy, cheap energy for the world.
That would be great. That would be awesome. Thomas, thank you for being here, Thomas.
Who does the European Union side with on space technology and collaboration? US or Russia, China, or both?
No, to my knowledge, and this is me speaking, I don't speak on behalf of Ross here. This is me. The European Space Agency sides with the US. It's always been following the US. You get three. You get Japan, and you get, to only my knowledge, Japan, Canada, of course, but the European Union Space Agency always coordinates its efforts with the US. So I don't see them doing that with China. However, never say never, because China has what China achieved when it comes down to the space, literally, they reached some dimensions that we've been working on for the last almost 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
They achieved it within 9 months. Makes you just wonder. I mean, so for the European Space Agency, and that I know this for fact, it's most of the time sides with the United States.
Yeah.
Now, if they see the potentials in working with the China, Russia together, that might be, but I don't see that happening.
We see some real interesting twists and turns to all this.
Yeah,
like the investment, China,
exactly,
European Union,
exactly.
Angela Merkel visiting Putin.
Exactly.
We're seeing, and the pipeline,
the Nord Stream 2.
Yeah.
Well, that's also because Europe is starting to realize now maybe time with America is coming to an end. It's coming. I think that's where they're getting at. So there's a possibility, but as of today, I don't see it happening. Next question. Malik. Good to see you, Malik.
What are the potential implications of a global 5G network from space, and how can it affect global economics? What is the latest from China's 6G and wireless power? Oh, great.
That is an interesting one. We did a show on this, remember, way back, Ross? And as a matter of fact, if I may answer this one here, because I know a little bit about the 5G part. As a matter of fact, our Secretary of State was talking about, well, we have to have a 4G network. And, oh, come on, let's catch up with time here. So the 5G network, where China is already past it. Yes, they are working on 6G, as a matter of fact, and they've already been working on it. But for the 5G, and the advantage that China will have, as I said, if there are to be military applications to space, which they are,
Major.
China can retrofit all that 5G network, because for all the other countries, they are not up to date with where a 5G is. I mean, some of them now start to catch up to it.
Yeah.
But China has already been working on 6G. So basically what China is going to be doing, in my opinion, they will always be a step ahead. In other words, the rest of the world will always be playing catch up.
One of the things we laugh about is, well, what on earth is China doing with us? 1 million new graduates in engineering and science every year.
Yeah, I always say that, Russ, and that's true, because that's how their education systems focus on that kind of stuff. Because even we're not going to get into education system in America how it is, because I happen to teach. I'm a professor, but I can see how classrooms are. And I usually, help my students to start broaden their horizons, intellectual one that is, to start see beyond the borders of a classroom. So yes, that's I do see that going that direction. Next question. MP, good to see you, MP. And thank you, by the way, MP, for your comments. I do read them personally, so thank you for that.
Is there any specific legislation governing exploration of resources on the moon? No. No,
the only one I'm aware of is the UN treaty that was signed in 1967. But there are certain clauses to that the US, and China included, Russia, they refuse to sign. And it tells you right there as to where the thinking is. No, as far as legislation, at least for us in the United States, it was one that was conducted in 2014, I believe, under President Obama, in which they restricted China's access to ISS, the International Space Station. So China said, hell with it. We don't need to go there. We're going to build our own. And this,
you can tune in and see what's going on 24 hours a day in their space station.
Yeah, and they are working on it. They will finish it soon, before any time. So the answer is no. There's no legislation that we know of as of today. Mike, good to see you, Mike. Mike Barber, thank you for being here.
Do you think the military complex will allow non-Western countries to mine, gather resources from space? Don't you think they are really behind the U.S. Space Force concept plans?
Well,
I don't think they can control it.
They can't, but in the question, Mike was mentioning about non-Western. Well, even within Western nations, not all of them will have this kind of capabilities unless the United States wants to carry the weight, which means we pay for everything. And my question will become, why should I?
Yeah.
Why should I use my taxpayers' money for that? So now, the way I see it personally, and again, my personal opinion, this is going to be a competition between China, Russia on one hand against the United States. So that's the only European Space Agency. I don't see them playing any active role into this, to the way you and I understand what Russia can do, what the US can do, and what China now can do. Mind you that China is still considered a newcomer to the space race, but
they're a top-tier player.
Yeah, for them to be where they are today, it didn't take them that long. They are in the moon and they are moving to Mars, and so that tells you right there where they are. So I don't see other Western like Britain. What Britain, or Australia for that matter, or no, I don't see that happening. So the competition is going to be between China, Russia, and the US. Axel Schroeder, thank you so much for being here. By the way, Axel Schroeder posts a lot of comment, very, very insightful. We can't thank you enough, Axel, because it really triggers a conversation, and I follow that closely when others respond to your postings. So we thank you so much for that. We appreciate it.
I am certainly for space exploration, but wouldn't it also be important to develop the Earth oceans for their resources and as a possible habitat?
Wow, that's an interesting concept.
It's been around for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost don't know what to say about it, because there seems to be very little interest in it and very little excitement around it. But space, major excitement. And we're certainly not going to see Helium 3 in the ocean.
No, we won't see it there. And for biologists, marine biologists per se, their main concern is going to be about the coral reefs, whether they will survive. What the big concern that I believe will be on this, based on some reading that I did one time, if there is some major seismic shift into the ocean floor. Now that will create an issue. Here is another concern which triggered an idea that I thought about at one time. What will happen if the moon ends up being nothing but a structure, and the structure decided to move a little bit away from where it is today?
The weather shifts on the planet would be horrific.
Yeah, and let alone at the low and high tide, we won't be able to control it.
Exactly.
And you all know what's going to happen.
And what would happen to the tectonic plates with the gravitational shift?
Yeah,
those things are already giving us earthquakes all over
exactly.
volcanoes all over the planet.
Yeah. Now, for the marine aspects of it, I do not know much about it, and I didn't come across a lot of literature that really focus on that area. It will be nice.
Well, I would be very concerned about disrupting the delicate balances ecologically in the ocean.
Wow.
Of going and doing, like, let's live under there. Let's put 1 million.
Yeah.
The ecology would be ruined in that section.
Exactly. Well, we're already noticing the recession of water, ocean waters.
Wow.
Receding a little bit. So, next question, and that's from Morty. Morty, thank you very much for being here.
Isn't India the first one to declare found water on the moon? I don't know that.
I don't have an answer to that. I wasn't aware of this. I'm not aware of it. No, I don't. So, and that will be worth looking into this. I do know India did spend some serious money on its space program. Yes, it's not at the same caliber or capacity as the United States, whatever. But
they didn't have the budget for it.
They did send the moon. They did send what you call it, satellites.
Oh,
they did send some satellites over. India does have something. It's just not a big scale as NASA.
That's what I meant. They don't have the budget that the United States
exactly
or China, Russia have.
Exactly, but they do have something like that. As to the claiming the water, I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of that. Next question, Stephen. Thank you for being here, Stephen. Actually, I see Stephen a lot putting some comments, posting that. Thank you so much for your comments, Stephen. No.
Will U.S. defense contractors see more profit in taking the confrontation beyond Earth?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the reason being to that, Stephen, you know how it works, Steve, is the idea of now you can think in terms of the AI artificial intelligence. Well, artificial intelligence is not going to be just limited to Earth here. Artificial intelligence will be deployed and used when it comes down to the space programs. We all know, it's not a secret, we all know there are some military applications in space. We all know that, I mean, why are we creating a space force if we didn't have already something there? Yes, it could, you know, defense contractors could see that by hyping the conflicts, by hyping the tensions that, oh my gosh, the Russians are there, the Chinese are there, we need to be there, we need to develop countermeasures for laser, counter this and that. That's where it's going to be leading to. And usually there is a danger into that. Because if we get into that tit for tat stuff, it's going to become very problematic. And God help us all.
Exactly.
Yeah, if somebody pressed the wrong button. So. Oh, thank you, Kenny. We appreciate it. So thank you so much for your sticker here. You know, and oh yeah, of course, we truly enjoyed having Brian. As to Daniel Dambril, we did send him an email. We're waiting for his response. If you get on his channel or something, please make a comment, and you know,
we would love to talk to him.
That's it. Elizabeth just informed me. Daniel just responded. He's willing to come on our show. So we're gonna have we're gonna have the interview and release it for you guys. We are planning on. By the way, since I have you and all of you here, we are planning on having some sort of a panel where we can invite all those guests and figure out a way how we can have a really civilized and honest and open conversation about issues that. Burning issues of the day that all of us can push for the idea of peace and coexistence among all of us. So
all of our guests to this point have appreciated being here and appreciated that there are a lot of kindred spirits all looking for the truth.
Exactly.
And so they're more and more of us are connecting to each other. And thanks to viewers like you, we got some really good people coming.
Exactly. And that's what we are hoping for. So, well, that's going to conclude our session for today. Our live. It's not a session. It's a conversation with you guys. So just as a reminder, for next week, we are not going to be live because we're going to be out of town. And we look forward to seeing you the following week. In the meantime, we're going to follow up with our interviews and all that. And we'll have that stuff released for you as soon as possible. And as always, don't forget, guys, please follow us on Twitter. That's the more we get followers, the better it is for all of us as far as the channel. We appreciate that. And as always, stay informed. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.